Norway just changed everything. But what does this mean for you and me? You may have seen the news headlines that show Norway can now fine influencers for using filters or Photoshop in their advertisements and their posts if they're not disclosed. But what does that mean exactly? And what does it mean for all of us? And why is this happening? There's a new law in Norway, and the vote was actually 75 to 15. So it won in, kind of a landslide. But it basically says that influencers in Norway have to disclose when their images are filtered. There's similar laws like this that exist in the United Kingdom right now, but I believe for the United Kingdom, it's only for advertisements and not just for influencers. What's frustrating is that a lot of people don't realize when photos are actually being filtered, and this can of course lead us to comparing ourselves to people online and looking at ourselves in the mirror. I remember vividly growing up and looking at models in magazines and wishing I could be like them. And by the time I actually got to becoming a model, I looked at myself and that finished photo, that picture, I looked at that girl and I was like, that's me, but that's also not me. Like, that's not what I look like in the mirror. And behind all of the makeup and the Photoshop and literally people holding lights or tying strings to your hair or to your outfit so that they can like make it go like this in a fan, you realize that a lot of these images are not reality. And even what we see on a billboard, in a magazine, or yes, on a screen is not something that we can replicate easily or if at all. But the question in my mind is always, when does this become harmful? Is it okay for magazines and companies and influencers to Photoshop and filter their pictures? Or does that leave us with unrealistic beauty standards or buying products that make us want to purchase certain things that don't actually deliver on those promises? The way that I like to think about Photoshop or image manipulation is kind of like a tool. A tool is something that we use to get a job done or create an outcome. But what happens if a tool is misused? It becomes a weapon, right? Imagine a hammer. A hammer can be used to hang photos or to build a house, but you can also use it to club somebody. And when these tools are misused, they do become weapons. And unfortunately, I feel like that's what we've been seeing on social media with all of these excessive filters in advertising and really these things that lead us to believe a reality that doesn't exist. As an example, here's a photo that I posted on Instagram. And if you swipe left, you can actually see that photo unfiltered and unedited. A lot of editing goes into these pictures. And if you're not trained in seeing these things, or if your job isn't social media, it's very easy for someone to look at that first photo and say, oh my God, that's gorgeous. Why don't I look like that? Why isn't that me? And actually on my Instagram, if you swipe 3 times, that's actually what I look like while I'm posting the picture, which is very, very different than either the before or the after, with or without Photoshop, right? But do these unrealistic beauty standards set us up for failure? And that almost brings up the conversation of body dysmorphic disorder, BDD. Body dysmorphic disorder is on the rise, and there's multiple medical journals that have documented this. Even people looking at themselves on Zoom and seeing like their filtered face have now post-pandemic been coming into dermatology clinics and into the office saying, I want filler, or I want my pores to be erased or smoothed. And they're looking for this version of themselves that they see online that doesn't stare back at them in the mirror. Another example is plastic surgery. Now, in the past, people used to come to the plastic surgery clinic and they would bring photos of celebrities, right? They would say, I want Jennifer Aniston's nose, or I want Reese Witherspoon's jaw, or I want Angelina Jolie's lips, or Halle Berry's eyes. And they would bring in these photos and ask plastic surgeons to augment their face or their bodies. But now we've noticed something very different. And this has been a trend kind of since I've been in the industry and kind of over the past really 5 to 10 years, I would say. And it's especially taken off in the last 2 to 3. But nowadays, young girls and teenagers, yes, they are actually bringing their parents in to sign off and sign waivers that allow them to get procedures done. But they're not bringing in photos of Reese Witherspoon or celebrities or even the Kardashians anymore. They're bringing in photos of themselves with Snapchat filters. There was a 17-year-old that came into a plastic surgery clinic with a photo of herself with a Snapchat filter and said, I want my skin to be this flawless, I want my nose to be this small, I want my chin to be shaped like this. And because she didn't look that way in the mirror, it was causing major anxiety in her life. And again, there are certain procedures put in place by insurance company that if you are being bullied or if you have issues with your body or your face that cause issues in the way your body functions, for instance, something with your mouth that you can't eat or swallow, with your nose that you can't breathe, or even just ears or other features of your face that cause you to be bullied, you can get those cosmetic procedures covered by insurance. However, when do we take that too far? And when is someone constantly looking at themselves, trying to augment their body, and it's not for them, but it is for society, or it's because they're so used to this filtered version of themselves that they can't see the reality staring back at them and see the beauty in the actual anatomy of skin, because guess what? Real skin has pores. Now, this law in Norway specifically targets both influencers, brands, and companies, and one of the reasons they cited to do this is because of the rise in body dysmorphic disorder and people's anxiety around their natural beauty. Medicine backs this up. There was a 2020 study that was published titled "Rising Dysmorphia Among Adolescents, a Cause for Concern." Researchers interviewed people from the ages of 16 to 18, and they saw a major rise in women more so than men, but still across the board a major concern when it comes to body dysmorphic tendencies and insecurities with both their bodies and their skin, etc. And the study specifically cited social media influence and how that can negatively impact people. And although these laws are being enacted now, and Norway and the UK and other countries are really taking a stance, that's not the reality here in America. Recently on Facebook, James Welsh did a really good job of exposing some of the filters and Photoshop that even Tarte Cosmetics was using. And if you don't know what to look for, this lady is literally saying, "I'm not using a filter," and it looks like her pores are completely disappearing. Now, we've all seen those TikTok videos where people put like the green tea sticks on their face and then shove like, you know, poppy seeds or black pepper on their face and wipe it off and there's a filter. And I think those filters are pretty obvious. Please tell me, skintellectual community, if I'm wrong. But when you have a young woman from Tarte Cosmetics, a brand here in the States that we don't expect to do that scammy behavior, and she's literally got pores that are shifting on and off of a blur on her face, don't lie to me like that. Now, here's how I think Tarte is getting away with that. This person specifically said, "I'm not using a filter." Maybe it's not a filter. Maybe it's edited literally frame by frame. Maybe it's some sort of a clipping mask. There are many different things and even AI that you can use to modify images and modify video. There's even technology that exists to modify people's body and shapes. There was a really intense one that went viral on Reddit of a woman in a boat, and you can literally see the difference in her body that looks totally natural if you didn't know that video filters were a thing. And let's not forget Kim Kardashian's magically expanding finger that in her literal advertisement for her shapewear, her entire finger expands along with the curves of her body. That is not reality. And when these people, these brands, these influencers, these celebrities, or these companies are selling us products, is it ethical for them to be using this sort of image manipulation? And my personal answer is no. And that's why I do post my befores and afters. And that's why I don't overly edit or Photoshop any of my sponsored content unless I clearly disclose it. But just because I don't believe it's right, does that mean that other people feel the same way or not? And does that mean it's legal or not? And again, in the case of the UK and now Norway, it's not legal anymore. But what's actually going to happen? News outlets are reporting that people will get fined, but how much? And is it different for a young influencer who's just starting up their Instagram page and posting some filtered content versus a large brand or a conglomerate such as KKW Beauty or their shapewear? How is that going to be different? And what does that mean for you and I? Does this mean like the path to loving and accepting ourselves and seeing the truth in advertising? Or does it still set us up with this unrealistic expectation of, okay, I see this and I know it's not real, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to look that way. You know what I mean? And again, this is only happening in those countries. So what about media that is created in somewhere like here in California in the United States where I live, and then it's posted in those other countries? How does that work? Or how does something work if it was a photo shot in another country, but it was edited over here, or in Canada, or in Russia, or in Zimbabwe? Or what if it was created and shot, but not edited in that location, but then sent over to a Canada or a Mexico or in Indonesia to get edited and then posted? Like, how does that work? Or does it depend on where the account is from? And do you see how this can be deceiving? It also brings up the question of kind of holding the same energy. Are we holding influencers to the same laws and regulation standards that we are celebrities? And then how does that differ between brands and corporations? There's a YouTube video that talks about sponsorships and about how in the traditional celebrity and media world, a lot of goes under the radar. Yet the FTC has heavily cracked down on influencers, meaning that thankfully, influencers have to disclose sponsored content, they have to say which brands are sponsoring or partnering with them, and if there's an affiliation. Now, this is great. I personally believe in truth in advertising. But simultaneously, how come celebrities are not being held to the same standard? And this YouTube video / documentary went into some examples, such as Miley Cyrus putting the EOS lip balm inside of their commercial placement and not labeling it as a commercial placement, or celebrities and celebrity celebrity endorsements not having to disclose things in the same way that influencers do. And it kind of brings up that question that, okay, if celebrities and big media conglomerates are allowed to get away with shoving advertising down our throats and not disclosing it, but we are expecting influencers, rightfully so, expecting them to disclose it, why aren't we holding those celebrities to the same standards? And in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, is it because the big media companies and the big celebrities have the money to lobby against that happening? And when you think about it, with the uprise of the influencer and the influencer now having the tools and tricks, the lighting and the Photoshop accessibility similar to what some of these large companies have, and the possibility to go viral on social media, it's very possible that influencers are starting to replace some of the quote unquote digital real estate that celebrities once held. If you think about it, like back in the day, if you wanted to become a celebrity, you had to get scouted, you had to know someone in the industry, you would have to go to castings, or you would have to kind of have an in, or someone would have to discover you in order for you to explode as an actor, an actress, a model, etc. But with influencers and with online literally being our playground and us as consumers voting with every single like and double tap of an image, it allows us as consumers and social media users to vote on what we like. So people have gone viral and exploded for dancing on TikTok, or sharing vacation photos, or heck, talking about skincare online. And in a way that's great because it gives us, the consumers and the users of these social media apps, the power back, right? There are AI algorithms, artificial intelligence, that kind of promotes certain things, and there is definitely racial bias and other bias inside of those algorithms, which we can't ignore. But as an overall, it is much easier to go viral on social media as a young influencer than it is through the traditional celebrity route. But the question becomes, has this uprising of social media caused issues and disruption with the main celebrity world? And seeing as there are brands and agencies and literal companies that have a huge financial incentive to protect this kind of online celebrity space, is that why there is this disparity with the FTC? Is there something going on that we don't know about? And is there money being lobbied to say, hey, let's make sure that there's truth in advertising on this side of the internet, but for the traditional celebrities and the traditional brands, we're not really going to pay attention, we're just going to turn a blind eye. And the reason that I do bring this up is because I believe that everyone should be held to the exact same standard. I remember growing up with photoshopped magazines. Look at a magazine cover and try to find it without Photoshop. It wasn't until recently that CVS actually started putting stickers on their magazine saying like, hey, there's like edited imagery inside of this content. And when you look at music videos, when you look at a freaking Maybelline commercial where her eyelashes are literally growing, when you look at any of these and you know what to look for, the editing and the Photoshop and the image manipulation is so obvious. But why isn't that being fined or held to the same standards that some of the things in the influencer world are? I completely agree with the Norwegian government. I think that influencers absolutely need to disclose these things and should be fined if they are advertising a product or a service that is filtered, not disclosing it. But I also think that traditional celebrities, traditional brands, and traditional media should too. Did you know that the milk in cereal isn't actually milk? It's glue, because it looks whiter and it holds the flakes better. There is a reason that when you go to buy a hamburger, the hamburger you get does not look like the hamburger in the ad. And it's because they prop up that hamburger with fluff and with literal sticks to make it stand up taller and look juicier, and they spray it down with hairspray to make the bun look shinier, which no, they don't do when they actually hand you that for your $3.99 menu for you to consume. And I understand that a burger is not skincare. Memes on Instagram might tell you otherwise, but burgers are not skincare. But still, does this impact the way we as consumers perceive things, where we buy things or spend our money? And how does all of that come back to honesty? Are we being deceived as consumers, or is this okay? And is it okay for the food industry but not the beauty industry, or vice versa? I also want to know, how much will people be fined if they violate this? Is this going to spread to other countries? Are we actually going to see people disclosing these things, or are we going to see people saying, this wasn't a filter, it was a clipping mask, or it was digitally manipulated AI expression of myself? Like, there are ways to get around this, right? And I actually want to know what the beautiful butterfly community thinks. What do you want to see? And then honestly, if you were in the position of posting, how would you feel? And to be fully transparent, as is one of my core values, and as always, the reason that I still post the filtered next to the unfiltered image is because I am not completely confident posting the unfiltered image front and center on my page. Yes, I always disclose when I'm doing it, or I let you swipe right to to see the unfiltered, but there is a reason that the filtered image comes first. And it's because even when I'm in this industry, even when I'm seeing what's going on, even when I've spoken to the plastic surgeons and read the papers on the rise in body dysmorphic disorder and have found confidence in my own skin and my own acne, I am still influenced by the images and the messaging that I see online, and I post the filtered, photoshopped photo first before I post the unfiltered one and before I post myself sitting down in the pose that I'm actually using while that photo is being uploaded to the Instagram or to whichever platform it is. Tell me what you think. The comments are yours, and also stay hydrated and reapply your sunscreen, because let me tell you, filters are great, but skincare is better. Always remember to be beautiful both inside and out, and I cannot wait to see you and your thoughts in the comment section. And of course in this next video. Love you guys. Bye.